back to the Lost. We're here to begin our second part of the Jax retrospective, likely covering everything that he did up through all three NetherRealm Studios games. If you were with us last time, we covered all of the original run, and now it's time to meet a man who really loves cigars.
Cigars are the, I would say, the dominant theme of new timeline Jax.
I wasn't sure before I reviewed all the NetherRealm stuff just now, but yeah, 9 was when they introduced him to cigars, and it's been kind of a staple. They kind of went full Carl Weathers with him.
I remember when that scene happens in 9. It's between the two tournaments where they're celebrating at the Wuxi Academy, and he's talking to Raiden while he's smoking, and I remember thinking, oh, he smokes cigar. That's an interesting little flavorful detail to add to his character. I thought that was a cool touch. And then in X and 11, it's like every intro and fatality uses the cigar, and I'm like, okay, guys, dial it back maybe a little bit. It kind of becomes flanderized.
Just a little bit. I have questions about the T-Rex fatality. A lot of questions. I'm not sure what they were going. Jax just gets some of the weirdest goddamned fatalities.
I like the T-Rex fatality. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's also kind of out of left field. The fuck. Anyway, so we should probably start this off with MK9.
That would be order of release.
So
chronological.
I was actually okay. Like I said, I was reviewing the everything before we came in here because I really felt that Jax is one of the characters that was far and away better in the newer games than he ever was in the older ones. So I wanted to do him right. So I started watching MK9 story mode a little bit, just the parts that had Jax in them, and I never noticed this before actually, but he's one of the people you can actually see a dead body for, like in the opening of 9.
Like, he's one of the Armageddon corpses.
He is. You kind of it's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but like you get like Reptile on the ground like dead, and there's a skinned body behind him, and further off in the distance a little bit next to someone, a little bit past someone with some gold armor, Jax is there, and he's been impaled through the back by a spear. So it's like either maybe Hotaru or Sindel killed him. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't remember a lot of bodies sticking out. I remember Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Raiden was Shinnok was... Somebody was under a Shinnok hand.
Kung Lao. It's Kung Lao.
Kung Lao. Okay. I remember Baraka was split. His head was split in half.
Everyone remembers that because it's like, Providence.
Like the camera closes in real good on like Sonya with her arms and legs ripped off or something like that.
Yeah, she's completely split in half.
And then like going up the stairs, it's like people died in the order they died in the Armageddon intro. Like you've got Kenshi there from where Shang was pretending to be Ermac, and Cyrax and Shiva, and
it was nice to have
Shang with zombie loose hooks in his back.
It was nice to have that little bit of continuity.
Yeah, I liked that touch. I feel like, I don't know, I mean, they would have had to make a Li Mei model, but I would have liked to see her down there with Hotaru's spear in her, because that happened.
I feel like Li Mei, like, well, I don't know, someone else had a spear in them too. Maybe I'm just remembering something like, but I noticed today that Jax definitely is impaled on a spear, or of some kind, or a Naginata, who knows. But
the other nice touch was that the vultures were there, because the Armageddon intro opens on one of those vultures like eating a masked guard from MK1.
Poor bastards never catch a break. But then Raiden kind of makes everything all better, question mark?
Question marks. Many question marks. In Val Kilmer would say it raises too many questions.
Well, whatever the case, he gave us new Jax, and I'm kind of grateful for that.
I mean, there are things I like and dislike about New Jax. I will say, I mean, compared to the 3D era, it is an absolute 100% improvement. Because the 3D era really didn't use Jax at all.
Yeah, it kind of feels like to me that the Jax like I grew up like really liking and watching through all the original games and like the Annihilation movie even, that guy just didn't exist in any form whatsoever until arguably the NRS era. Arguably.
Yeah, there's
He doesn't have too much going on in 9, like, character-wise, except for the fact that they gave him stogies.
no, that's kind of the thing that bothers me, because like when I think of what I felt about Jax back in the MK2, 3, and 4 days when we had cartoons and movies and stuff, I mean, outside of the kind of the weird banter between him and Raiden in the cartoon, I tend to like the responsible leader man. Like, he was sort of the most mature and had his life together and was good at giving orders of any of the characters. Like obviously Raiden is the mentor, but if I were to pick a guy who's like good at battle plans and strategy on the good guys team, I'd probably imagine it was Jax.
Yeah, like, he's the set field commander. He's the guy that establishes
He's
what the
he's
goals
more
are.
like I think of him because Sonya is so irresponsible in those early days games. I think of Jax almost as like the team dad, partially because he's the one keeping her on track.
Shang actually says in fucking 9, is there anything you two do other than rescue each other? That was a
Yeah,
line I enjoyed.
he he hit the nail on the head though. And I feel like it wasn't rescue each other so much until that game. It was more him rescuing her, so they came up with situations where she needed to rescue him to balance it out.
There is a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, because that's like his introduction to 9 is them retconning him into MK1 in place of the team of soldiers that Sonya was supposed to have come to the island with who get captured.
He is the unit.
Yeah, like in the old timeline, she had a whole team. In MK9, it's just Jax.
Absolute unit. Look at this man.
and and it's not like they didn't have the NPC models, because like in the MK3 part of the story, there's soldiers getting kidnapped and rescued all over the fucking place. So yeah, like in MK9, he's kept prisoner in Goro's lair. And one of the things that's always struck me as funny about that scene is that MK9 retcons Shiva's backstory so that she's like, her job is to guard the prisons. And there are no prison stages anywhere in MK9 except Goro's lair, and she's not there.
She kind of is guarding Sonya in the Deadpool at some point, because
Yeah, that's the thing.
they just
like,
fucking ran out of places.
Whenever they're in Outworld and there's a scene where she's guarding a prisoner, there's always a bit of dialogue about how, why are we in this weird place instead of a prison? And she's like, we wouldn't be here if you hadn't tried to escape the prison. Why don't you just have her guard Goro's lair? But no, like, because she does show up on Shang's Island. Like, that pisses me off. She shows up on screen before Goro does in that game. It really bothers me that Shiva shows up on screen before Goro does during MK1, where, like, one of the most important, like, thematic elements of MK1 is holy shit Goro. the champion with the 500-year win streak who you have to beat to win the tournament. And she steals all his hype and turns it into a wet fart.
I mean, yeah, Shiva needs some love, but man, Goro got shafted in 9 terms of
Well,
presentation.
she shouldn't even be there. The scene she's in isn't important. She's just kind of a rando for Cyrax to fight. Like, you could cut that scene and lose nothing from the narrative. In fact, you could cut Cyrax's whole chapter and lose nothing from the narrative.
Easy. Down, boy. We gotta cover Jax.
Right.
So,
but
so speaking of Goro's lair, he's actually in there, like, in a
Yeah.
shitty quasi-cell. until Sonya
Yeah,
comes and
and he's
gets him.
like all beat up and bruised. And Sonya goes down there to rescue him, and Raiden shows up, and he has a vision of how Liu Kang is the one who's supposed to fight Shang, so he stops Sonya from fighting Shang, which implies that in the original version of things, when Raiden wasn't trying to change history, Sonya fought Shang Tsung.
I would have liked to have seen that, maybe. I wouldn't have minded.
I mean, I'm sure she lost, because that's the thing. Like, in the old timeline, the reason that she has a unit of NPCs she's trying to rescue is we know Sonya doesn't win the tournament. Those guys are supposed to die.
Yeah, probably.
Like that moment of failure doesn't happen for her in this timeline. And like
Well,
it wasn't like a major element of her character ever, but like
she does radio in for a chopper that gets blasted down.
there is that. But like the thing that bothers me about it is if Sonya lost a match in the tournament and Shang went, well, now I got to kill your guys because I said that's what I would do if you didn't win, then we'd get to see Shang steal some souls. Shang doesn't steal any souls in MK9 story mode at all, ever, or even talk about stealing souls. Like
he is a character that the game is kind of unkind to as well.
The
I think we
entire
established that.
the entire reason Shang Tsung made himself the guy who runs the tournament was so he could steal the souls of match losers because he wanted fighters' souls to make himself stronger. And he never does it anywhere in 9.
Okay, but Jax though.
Sure. I'm just saying, like, by putting Jax in this place in the narrative, you're robbing other characters of stuff.
It's possible. Like, it's possible. Like, I would have preferred him to, like, I don't know, maybe take the souls of the guys in the choppers or something.
You're also kind of...
9 was not kind to a lot of people.
I also feel like the way Jax was originally introduced in MK2, where he's a newcomer who doesn't necessarily know about or believe in realms and magic, you're kind of robbing the MK2 narrative of that part. Like, I get that if you're telling 1, 2, and 3 as one story, then you'd be repeating things that already happened to Sonya and Johnny. So you're kind of streamlining the narrative by not making Jax also need exposition.
Yeah, like, most forms of, like, media nowadays tend to, like, retroactively put Jax in that MK1 position, like Scorpion's Revenge just did it.
That's the weird thing, though. I like it in Scorpion's Revenge because
Malibu Comics actually also did it to a certain extent, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to go back and review that later.
What I liked about it in Scorpion's Revenge that I don't like about in MK9 is that I like Goro being the one to take his arms more than Ermac, because it gives Goro that big hype moment at the beginning of the tournament that he needs, that MK9 completely never has for him. And, like, I'm skipping ahead, but I don't like that Ermac takes Jax's arms. I don't like that it's Ermac who does it, because Jax never has, like, a grudge against Ermac. Like Jackie mentions him one time in X, and then Jax mentions him one time in 11, but it's not a rivalry the way like Sonya and Kano or Scorpion and Sub-Zero is a rivalry. Like, it goes nowhere. And also, Ermac's not actually supposed to be a bad guy. He's under mind control. But in the NRS timeline, they never really turn Ermac good.
I've never really felt that Ermac was under mind control so much as he was, like, under Shao Kahn's, like, influence. Like, he was...
I mean, he
was doing his job, Ermac, but, like, he didn't really like it. Like, he had no choice but to obey the people who were controlling him. And as far as, like, him being the one to take the arms off his, I don't care who it is. I just don't like it. I want the implants back.
I mean, that's part of it, too. Like, my thing is... it just really bothers me to give a major moment that changes a character's life to someone who they have no further interactions with after that. Like, I feel the same way about Kintaro burning Cabal. Cabal never goes after Kentaro. He never mentions Kentaro or blames Kentaro. He only blames Shao Kahn and Kano. And
Eleven's a
neither of
part of
them
it.
were there.
11's a part of it. He gets to blame Sonya for it.
Yeah, it's
Kentaro
just,
didn't do nothing. Waka
it's just
waka.
that's why I don't like that Ermac's the one who does it. That's all. Because it never does anything for either character. Like, there's no big revenge fight where Jax gets to beat up Ermac.
No, there's no comeuppance, and it was a bit disappointing. But like, you know, you just that they only had him do that for shock factor because the
Exactly.
character's
Like,
been
it's a cool scene the first time you see it. And then every time after that, it's kind of meh because the shock is gone. It only works once.
it's flanderization. Jax is a guy that has metal arms, ergo the arms are actually metal now.
I have always said, as a storyteller, as a writer, shock value is nearly worthless. A good story is a story you can watch more than once. If your narrative relies on something happening that's only shocking once, it's not gonna work.
I miss when Jax wasn't flanderized.
But like I said, that is skipping ahead.
No, I mean his arms in 9 are a big point of contention.
Well, there is.
It's the big part of what happens with him in 9. He doesn't do much of anything else except for smoke cigars, beat up Johnny at one point. He gets to take down a few people like Jade, Shiva, bunch of Tarkatans. He gets a fair share of fights in. But
I like some of the dialogue Jax gets in 9. They do manage to get across that sort of he's the responsible one. He's kind of the team dad personality a little bit. But yeah, he's mostly only in the story to do the thing we all remember, which is get robot arm.
Very unfortunate. He also doesn't get it all like the time to convince the superiors that there's an invasion coming. None of that.
Yeah, we
like,
don't.
You
we
just
don't
like
any of that. The thing that is interesting to me about the arms is like when we first see him throughout the MK1 and 2 parts, he's wearing these like braces with like these glowy tech bits on his knuckles and elbows. And I feel like they're like retconning the idea that he was the strongest man in the world and his like sonic boom attack was like a chi thing. They're trying to make it like, oh, he always had arm tech. And then when he gets the robot arms, it's like just better arm tech.
Well, I always kind of figured it probably was like a little bit of tech. I don't know. I don't know about a retcon. They never specified it. I think you've always been able to look at it as either tech or chi.
Yeah, I guess.
It's very ambiguous.
I'm not complaining about it. I just think it's a little weird.
I just like maybe not so much in 2, but like going forward, I kind of figured that like there was a reason both his and Sony's projectiles were purple. You know, purple's a thing.
I don't know. I guess I was never necessarily married to the color of his moves being significant because they changed the Earthquake's glow to blue in 3. They made it purple again in 4.
Like I've always kind of been a proponent of the fact that like color kind of means something when we were talking about special moves. Like there's a reason that Ermac has the same kind of special soul fireball that Shao Kahn does. They're both shooting souls and shit out.
Yeah. I'm just I don't know what it is about it that's weird to me. I just think those brace things look funny, I guess, and I would have preferred a more MK2-esque costume. Cause the rest of that outfit, like he's got like this huge bulky armored vest. It's not like a military bulletproof vest. It's almost like medieval.
The vest is what
it's like plates attached to a shirt. It's just like what Smoke is wearing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it looks like he just ripped off a ninja.
It sort of reminds me of that weird top he has on in the previous game, MK vs. DC, except more metallic. And then he's got like
the presence of the gear things on the elbows, though, definitely does seem to suggest some kind of tech. And There's like some nozzles on his knuckles or whatever is going on there.
There was one touch I kind of like. I don't know how many people ever noticed this, but in the one skin, he has a full goatee, and then in the other skin, he's shaved down to just a mustache. Like he has different facial hair for different skins.
That's nice because, like, you know, the inconsistency always drives me insane. These days,
Well, it's almost the opposite of the old inconsistency where he'd be clean shaven in the art and have a mustache in the game. Now it's mustache or full beard.
I don't even know which one looks right or wrong to me anymore.
Well, he had a full goatee at MK4.
Maybe it's just all good. Let's go with that. It's all good. That's what we get.
It depends on the face. I think for most of the face models they've had for Jax, he doesn't look good clean shaven. The MK11 guy is the only exception I can really think of where I think he looks okay without some kind of facial hair.
Okay, but can we agree that, like, the MK Special Forces Dirty Sanchez must never be revisited? That's terrible. I'm looking at it right now. It's going to haunt my dreams tonight.
I can go with that.
So 9. Gets to pound down a few Tarkatans, gets his arms ripped off.
Yeah, so that's sort of... I mean, this isn't Jax's fault, or, like, the writing of Jax specifically. I found it really kind of cheap and shoddy that when they get to the Tarkatan attack on the Shaolin Temple, they film it from Jax's point of view, so he gets knocked out and then we don't see the attack.
Wakes up and whoops, everyone's dead.
Yeah, like they just skip over the whole thing.
That's just kind of abbreviating everything that... Ugh, it's very unfortunate. It really is.
Yeah. I don't know. So there's...
But I'm supposed to be talking how Jax is better. I do like the fact that he's, like, convening with Raiden about where things are gonna go. Like, he does show that little bit of an aspect of what plans and shit and covering all his bases. Probably wanted to make a report for back home.
Yeah, like, he's consistently the most intelligent member of the good guy team. I do appreciate that, like again, there were concerns all throughout the old timeline that sometimes Jax was portrayed as, like, the blaxploitation-y character, like that he's the one who just has the catchphrases and is kind of the token. But they definitely, like, ease way back on that in 9.
He's not that anymore, and he hasn't been that for a very, very, very long time.
He's more back to, like, the MK2 and 3 levels where, yeah, he does have catchphrases when he fights, but he's also more than that.
To be fair, I don't know if I want a Jax that didn't have 1 or 2 catchphrases. I don't want them to overdo
I mean, definitely, like, if he didn't say gotcha or, like,
that
get
would be
some,
wrong.
like, it wouldn't feel right. Like, he needs that bit of attitude.
I demand either... Okay, I demand gotcha. I want... That's what you get. Because I love that. I could really use, yeah, now what? But I don't think it's ever going to happen.
I'm holding out hope. One day. I'm
gonna have so much fun talking about Lynn Red Williams. I really am. Okay, so... Yeah, like, after he gets his arms shorn off, like, not even shorn off, just, like, exploded. Ermac just... blows them off. They explode telekinetically. You don't see him again until Cyber Sub-Zero wakes up, and by this point the implants are already on. This is like the middle of the invasion.
He and Sonya do completely disappear from the middle of MK2 until the middle of MK3.
I want to assume that, like, maybe all that stuff about trying to convince their superiors bad things are happening might still be canon. They just never mention it.
I feel like things happen much, much faster in the MK9 version compared to, like, if you asked me how long from the beginning of MK1 to MK3 actually took place in that timeline, I would say, there were months to years.
I always figured about a good half year between.
I would put maybe like 6 months between each game.
Give or take. I might put longer between 2 and 3. Because I feel like it probably took Shao Kahn a bit of time to like get everything together, get ready, like start whatever magical rituals were required.
Yeah, because I mean they were just waiting for however long Sindel's the ritual to resurrect her took. And apparently it was a ritual, like in the old timeline, mythologies literally tells us the ritual takes 10 years. So they started a long time ago.
Just in case. So I think that takes us into MK10.
Well, there's some things in 9 that I like that I want to point out. Like,
Sure.
so first of all, Jax, like I said, when he was in Goro's lair, he was being tortured and he's all bruised up. And that's the first time we see Raiden use healing powers.
And Johnny's like, it's all right, it's cool. He's legit. He's a real god.
Yeah, that's sort of funny to me, is that like Sonya and Jax were not around for any of the exposition Raiden gave Johnny earlier, but they just go with it the moment he starts talking about Shao Kahn. And also, like, Raiden uses these healing powers for bruises. And then we have other people seriously injured on the verge of death or literally dying later, and he doesn't use them at all.
Not the sharpest tool in the shed, Raiden, during MK9.
No. And I also like that when we get to the MK3 part of things, the MK2 part. When we get to the MK2 part of things and Jax loses his arms, I like that they had the wherewithal to have Sonya like cauterize the wounds with her laser rings.
She's right on top of it, and Sub-Zero is just casually, "Oh, you stopped the bleeding." And like 3 minutes ago, when they confronted Sub-Zero, Sonya and Jax were like telling him about like where to find Scorpion, and like Jax like gives Sonya the nod. It's like, all right, we can do this. He seems trustworthy. And Sub-Zero's response for this kindness 5 minutes later, when the guy's arms are off, is, "There's a portal to the south. Fuck yourself. Thanks for the tip."
Well, he's busy. He's got his own problem.
Can make them an ice gurney or something. Fuck. What an asshole.
He could have made like some sort of sled.
Oh man.
That's, I mean, not a Jax issue. Kuai Liang was kind of a dick in MK9. A little out of character, I always felt.
He's got Kratos frozen just off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just the character in 10 compared to 9 is night and day. Like I don't know if it was like the voice casting or what, but like he just seems so much.
I consider it the writing, because maybe. I mean MK9 suffers from, and we talked about this in the Kuai Liang episode, the whole thing where he's only there to get revenge for his brother completely sort of changes his character.
Yeah.
But yeah, and speaking of change character, I mean, it doesn't necessarily imply one way or the other whether Jax is the one who invented the arms that he then attaches to himself, although I have to imagine it would be a little hard to do so without hands.
I'd like to think that maybe he had like a bunch of prototypes drafted up at the Special Forces. I think MK3's bio does specify that they're prototypes.
Yeah, well,
we have to throw that out.
Tobias talked about that when they were developing Special Forces. People would ask, "Isn't this a prequel? How come Jax has the arms?" And he's like, "Well, they're prototypes." This.
They fucked up.
I mean, that was just a function of like, look, the most famous thing about Jax is the metal arms, so we're gonna put them on him.
mumble.
But it was easier in that timeline where they were sleeves that he could put on and take off, and it wasn't about like a prosthetic to help with a disability.
Well, we were talking last time about how it was very likely, and it just made sense, even if it's not canon, that like Kano's eye prosthetic and like Jax's arms and shit and all the cyber tech, it probably is all derived from special forces.
Yeah,
So I think
like
I think that
the
the shit's
whole
readily available. If Kano's
like
got the eye, I don't see why Jax can't have the arms. You know?
like that connective tissue that never existed in the games but does in Legacy, where they say, "Oh, all of this stuff was stolen from DARPA." But yeah, it's just so like in retrospect, the fact that becomes disabled and then dies and comes back does like I see where they were going with the character now, where he's PTSD the man.
That's something that I thought that they dealt with pretty well in X.
But
That
at the time, the fact that he dies in 9 always really bothered me because I don't buy Sonya as the person who like is then able to become the leader of the unit. Because like there are things Jax did for like the creation of the OIA which doesn't even happen in this timeline. Like he led the team that invented the portals, and you know I feel like the fact that the OIA was like an agency, like it wasn't part of the military, it was like the FBI or the CIA. It was this side thing that had like civilian consultants and like an exploratory division and all
right,
of this. It was more than just soldiers.
it was science. It wasn't military. It was
That
exploratory.
was the product of Jax's brain. And because he died, and when he came back was like so disillusioned and didn't come back to the military completely ever, we lost out on that element in the lore.
We lost out on lore, but I think that we gained a better character than he ever was as a result.
I will grant that Jax himself ended up more dimensional and got more to do. I just wish that instead of a special forces, we had an outer world investigation agency. That's all.
The thing is, what I think they did is just kind of conglomerated the SF and the OIA together. It's like they're G.I. Joe that can open portals now. This is what they are. They just like mashed both concepts together, and it's another bit of flanderization and like just simplifying everything to an easily digestible degree that I've never.
I don't know. I miss the science aspect to it.
So do I.
I'm not comfortable with the scenes in X and 11 of soldiers invading hell.
There is something inevitably a little bit Doom about that, and yeah.
It's like you know what? I buy it better in Doom because in Doom there's this vibe that the soldiers understand they don't belong there and they're going to die. Whereas when Mortal Kombat does it, it's like, "Oorah, Marines, we're here to like fight the terrorists," except the terrorists are the devil. We're not supposed to win that fight, but we do.
I don't think there's any argument that the special forces as a concept are kind of largely what's been shitting up the MK universe for a little while now. They tend to take a lot of the spotlight. They're a very easy umbrella for all the heroes to gather under, and as a result, they just take up way too much screen time. And
I feel the same way about it. Like it's jingoistic. Like it reminds me of the way Michael Bay uses the army in a Transformers movie.
I need a cigarette now. Why'd you remind me of that? You know how many fucking years I had to cope with people going, but isn't Jazz silver? Why don't you like Optimus Prime with blue flames? Bumblebee talking sucks. I want you to die. I hate you. I want you to die! Anyway.
But yeah, that's, I don't know. I liked the OIA better. They were less military. Not completely not military, but less military.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that bugged me about that Jax was among the dead at the end of 9. But But looking at the way he is used in X and 11, I do actually see, like, of all the characters who Sindel kills in that scene, Jax, I think, actually is the only one that benefits from having died.
I'll
Like,
give that to.
He became
Yeah.
more of a character because he died, whereas everybody else who dies in that scene became less of a character because they died.
They just gave up on everyone else.
Like, you look at
they just pulled like the whole
in that scene,
the time travel shit.
All that results for Sub-Zero is that they skip over some of his development and they bring him back and go straight to Deadly Alliance without the middle part of him, like...
That was a necessary concession because they fucked.
Yeah, but, like, obviously, like, Sub-Zero just kind of loses a chunk of his narrative by dying and coming back, but then resumes his old story from the old timeline with that, in spite of that chunk being missing. Like, Smoke gains nothing from being dead.
What I do is I mentally copy paste the MK4 to Deadly Alliance story. It's just like the old timeline. We never saw it actually happen. We didn't get to live it, but he beat the shit out of Sector and took control of the clan. I'm good.
I mean, we got that part of it in the comic. What I miss is the part where he's on his own from, like, he's left the clan and he's sort of wandering and doesn't know what to do with his life. That the soul searching is the part I miss. We don't get that in the new timeline because Raiden and Bo Raicho force him to revive the Lin Kuei and fight Sector.
Comics. Good time.
But yeah, like I always felt like, don't kill both Sub-Zero and Smoke. Like, if you had left Smoke alive, you could be doing a lot more with him now.
Just you wait till we get there.
Don't kill Stryker. What has Stryker done since he died?
You tell me. NRS, tell me. Where's Stryker?
They tried really hard to make Stryker cool in 9, and then they wasted by killing him.
Oh, wait, no. Stryker did do a thing in 9. He shot a guard in the head. No, in X, sorry. In X, Stryker shot a guard in the head. And that was
I just love the bit where Quan Chi, when Johnny and Sonya lead the soldiers into his library and he attacks, he's like, he kills off all their, like, troops because he's like, I have no need for your soldiers, but you will serve me. And it's, what do they got that's, like, what does Stryker have that those guys didn't?
Well, we'll get to that because it's plainly something. Stryker's got something. We don't know what that something is, but he's got it in him.
I don't need those 5 guys with assault rifles, but this one guy with a pistol, he'll do nicely.
Is it the pistol or is it the nightstick? It might be the sexy nightstick.
He never uses the nightstick in X.
My bad. Flashlight. It's got to be all about the flashlight, right?
He rides a horse and shoots a gun. Did those soldiers not know how to ride horses? Was that the trick?
You know, I bet that there's some cutting room floor footage of, like, Stryker on horseback, flashing the flashlight, and, like, just going past and, like, clunking someone really hard with the end of his pistol or
New York does have cops who ride horse.
That
like,
shit
they
could look badass.
Park or something like that. I don't know.
But going into X for Jax, though.
Yeah.
Liked the Revenant design.
Yeah, I actually think that Jax is the only Revenant with a cool design, because he's the only one who gets that effect where the technology is twisted and hellish.
Well, there's a little bit of that in Kung Lao's hat, too, by making it kind of, like, spiky and contorted.
Yeah,
I kind of dig, like, Revenant Kung Lao. I just wish he wasn't bald. That's all.
The Buzzsaw addition to Kung Lao's hat, I do appreciate. It's just like, I look at, like, Cabal and, like, Quan Chi had the whole thing where he's like, I don't trust technology, so I'm going to turn Cyber Sub back into regular Sub. But I'm totally going to leave Cabal needing to breathe out of a tube, and I'm going to leave Jax's metal arms. Because I guess... See, in my head, the only rationale can possibly be that Cyber Sub sucked compared to regular Sub, but Jax and Cabal are stronger with their tech.
That's probably it. Like
because Cyber Sub did die from a single punch to the chin. Like, he didn't get his spleen ripped out. He didn't get a stiletto to the throat.
Which is how Jax went.
And that was enough to kill him. One punch. So he must have been like a really shoddily made robot.
Stryker got one punch to the face too.
Yeah, but
it was like a heel smash to the nose.
I know that like the idea that the bridge of your nose can be shoved into your brain is actually an urban legend, but that's totally what it looks like happened.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone. Shh, don't tell NRS.
I mean, maybe if you had super strength, you could do that.
Maybe if you've eaten your Shang for breakfast. Your Shangos. Yeah, we didn't cover that. He got a fucking stiletto to the neck and died.
Yeah, that's how he died. Which will do it. I mean, it's more than an uppercut to the chin.
It's at least definitive. It was pretty blatant.
Well, you know, there's like a whole logic to it because she grabs him by the wrists.
Yeah.
And then like kicks him in the throat.
It actually looked like she was administering a finishing move rather than hitting someone in the head.
Yeah, and also like she's doing it in such a way where like he can't use his arms, which are his whole thing. So there is like strategy to that kill.
Eat your shanks.
And I feel like the way she kills Cabal, it looked like that she stabbed her heel into his breathing bandolier too. So like I kind of buy that one.
Little bit.
But yeah, most of them did not get like a good death.
It was just, there's no more story left to tell for you, and you, and you.
Yeah.
Down you go.
I mean, there's a lot of logistic problems in that scene that people have spent the past 8 years nitpicking. 9 years now, I guess.
Whenever they get a hold of Sindel, nothing good happens. Nothing.
It is kind of becoming like a recurring thing, isn't it?
It's almost like someone wants to make her really, really cool and have her in everything and doesn't know how to fucking do it with tact.
No, they're trying to push her for SummerSlam, but all you end up with like is the Roman Reigns version of when you push someone too hard.
See, I haven't fucking watched wrestling in 25 years, and I know that people don't give a shit about Roman Reigns.
No, he is the definition of artificial. Nobody gives a fuck.
All right.
But Vince will keep trying because he's big and Vince likes some muscles.
Weird flex, but okay.
I mean, that's the reason. Vince, he might be closet gay.
All right, speaking of muscles, how about them shiny revenant arms of Jax's and X?
Yeah. Again, like I really like the twisted like the Doom version of the metal arms. And I'm kind of bummed that there's no gear like that in 11. Like I think
I'm surprised.
Some Combat League gear leaked but isn't out yet.
I'm sure they'll get around to it if it's not already.
Yeah.
His Revenant X appearance was pretty striking.
It feels like that should have been like when you have 30 arms. That should have been one of the starting options because like let's be honest. There are only 2 good sets of arms in the entirety of his MK11 gear because most of them have like mattress pads and weird colors.
A lot of it's
There's only 2 that are just straight silver, and one of them is the MK3 Retro.
A lot of it's like terrible G.I. Joe shit. Like
it's
season 3
so...
G.I. Joe shit that like
it's
only the drivers
weirdly...
that came with vehicles would ever actually wear. It's pretty bad.
It's also weirdly colorful. Like that's the part that I don't get. 30 years Jax has had just plain silver arms. Every arm gear in this game is like yellow and purple or like red stripes. It's what the fuck?
Someone's got a bad eye, man. Someone's got an eye for over design and shit. But anyway, as a Revenant, yeah, he stands out. Like, if you weren't playable in that game, you didn't get like
Yeah.
you didn't get a new look.
And honestly, like the emotional impact of at the beginning of MKX, our heroes like Shinnok is attacking and the Revenants are his army. The emotional impact of these guys having to fight these twisted evil versions of their old friends is pretty much only felt through Johnny and Sonya confronting Revenant Jax. Like, that's the only place where they really use it well. Like, even later when Raiden fights zombie Liu Kang and Kung Lao in them, it doesn't work the way it works when it's Jax and Sonya. And I think part of that is because Liu Kang has been so poorly characterized in 9 and X. And part of it is that, like, Jax has not been poorly characterized. They actually do a good job with him. There is one moment of it that the writing kind of fails for me, falls flat, and that's later when when Human Jax is in the Nether Realm and they're fighting Revenant Kitana. And there's this whole dialogue exchange between them where he's like, I hated being a Revenant.
Okay,
But you seem to enjoy it.
I'm gonna stop right there. That's food for the Katana retrospective. We're not gonna get into that here.
Well, what's confusing to me about it is that Jax knows that when he was a Revenant, he was saying things he wouldn't say as a human because his mind was twisted. Why would you ask a Revenant a question when you know you're not going to get an honest answer because they're not in their right mind?
Okay, I just had to. Okay, that's fair. I just had to stop you before we got on to Katana's little.
No, I'm not going down that road.
Next
I just from Jax's point of view, that's a stupid question.
Just a little bit, yeah. Just a little bit.
Maybe I don't know. That moment always bugged me.
Maybe they were trying to imply that even as a Revenant, Jax didn't like what he was doing inside. It's very questionable.
We saw him say evil things to Johnny and Sonya, like him saying them against his will because the Revenants are under a form of mind control makes perfect sense. So why doesn't it occur to him that Katana's also under mind control and the things she's saying are not how she truly feels?
Heat of the moment, brain fart, case of derp.
I don't know.
I do like how Jax is kind of used as the emotional anchor to remind us of how much we've lost from everyone. Like, everyone else, like Liu Kang, are shown
about how he's used well when Johnny and Sonya have to fight him at the beginning is that, like,
once they knock him out.
One time that the concept of the Revenants comes across as good writing as opposed to how it comes across 99% of the time, where it's more like they ran out of fucking ideas.
Like Liu Kang and Kung Lao and what else, and the others, they're kind of used to demonstrate how twisted and ugly the Revenant, like, these characters that we once loved have become. But in Jax's case, once they knock him down, you get like that moment with Johnny looking at him and full of pity, and he's like, "I swear we're gonna fix you one day." And that was a good moment, both for Johnny and for the storyline. I really appreciate that.
That's the one point where I actually appreciated what they were going for, because the rest of the time it just feels like they wrote themselves into a corner where during 9 they were like, we want to have a bunch of death scenes, and it feels almost like they pulled names out of a hat of who to kill. And Revenants, the rest after that point just kind of felt like them trying to write themselves back out of that corner, just playing cleanup, that it was all just kind of, these are filler characters now. Like, they try. I wouldn't say they succeed.
They try to make Liu Kang into kind of an interesting doppelganger to himself. Because he's got logical, valid reasons for hating the fuck out of Raiden.
Yeah, like that's the part of it that always bothered me, is that he has good reasons to be mad at Raiden, but it's undermined by the mind control aspect.
Yeah.
Like, he'd be a much more interesting villain if he was himself.
Anyway.
Yeah, so you get that good taste of Revenant Jax at the beginning, and then Jax gets brought back later.
He shanks Johnny.
He does.
With a fucking knife through the chest, through the back.
I always kind of wondered where that knife came from. It would have, I don't know, it would have been cooler to me if he had like an extendable knife in his arms, sort of a reference to the MK3 fatality.
Yeah, like, I'm not, like, you don't really see it well, but you do for a second. Like, he's holding a dagger.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It would have been nice for it to be.
I felt like that should have been like an extendo blade in his wrist.
You don't go full T1000, but you go a little bit T1000.
Yeah. But yeah, that's actually like a really important scene in general, and unfortunately the MKX comic kind of undermines it because it's the one scene where we get to see how the Revenants were made, how it actually works, why Sub-Zero has a different body. Because the idea is that, like, he made them new bodies out of that pool of blood Quan Chi did in his library. Whereas when they do it in the MKX comic, he just kind of disassembles the robot down to a brain and then, like, makes a new body around it out of thin air. But, like,
to me, that's like,
as Johnny dies, the new evil Johnny growing out of the blood pool and Raiden stopping it is a much more interesting visual.
I'll take Game Over comic whenever I can. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The comic was just plainly there to explain why Sub-Zero is no longer a robot.
I have noticed that on Twitter and places like that, among the fandom, people seem to think the way it happened was the way in the comic. Like, it seems more people are somehow aware of that scene with Sub-Zero than the scene with Johnny in the blood pool. Even though the one that's in the game is the one that's in the game.
That's dumb. Never go to Time Media for
that always just annoyed me. That how many people seem to think that the... I don't understand how there's, like, more people who read the comic than played the game, or what? I don't get it.
Don't ask me. I'm just the guy that actually literally takes everything into account like people should.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyhow.
So we don't see Jax for quite some time after he's brought back to life
by the magical exploding Johnny Bloodpool Revenant.
Yeah, by the weird Deus Ex Machina of Raiden combining a healing spell with Quan Chi being knocked out on the floor.
Like, he mentions that, like, he can't, like, stop the Revenant from being formed because there's still a link to Quan Chi. Like, at that moment, Quan Chi is too strong, so Sonya goes over and beats him up and, like, stomps on his nuts. And that
like, he breaks Quan Chi's concentration so that Raiden is able to stop the spell that's turning Johnny into a Revenant.
And so, because he breaks the link to Johnny, he also breaks the link, which I guess is open there between the rest of them.
Yeah, like, it's almost like the Revenant spell Quan Chi is casting is like an open internet connection. And Raiden's healing spell is a hack that he sends down the line. And somehow that affects the other Revenants that are in the room.
He forcibly aborted the torrents. Everything's gone. Also the other torrent files. Magic. Woo. Ain't it funny how it works?
It's magic. You don't have to explain it.
A wizard did it. Literally.
Literally a wizard did it.
Move the fuck on.
I just think it's funny the inconsistency with which Raiden is able to cast spells that don't have anything to do with lightning throughout these 3 games.
He's quite the thunder god. He's quite the thunder god of he's the god of doing whatever the fuck you need him to do for the blood.
Yeah, I just he didn't used to be able to do stuff that wasn't lightning.
Yeah, yeah. I guess being the Earthrealm protector just comes with special perks. Can the
But
fire
yeah,
god
now,
cure
now
you? I'd
he
like to
actually
know.
like chants magic words and casts spells like Gandalf. I do wonder, like, did the because at the end of MKX, when Raiden is purifying the Jinsei, the magic words he's saying are like actual Japanese. So I wonder, as a writer, how do you come up with the gibberish words? When do you use like a language, and when do you use stuff that's off the top of your head? I would love to ask them. Like,
I
I guess that's a Brian Chard question.
maybe like I want to believe that they took it from somewhere or something, but like it just seems like so much Umata Kalima shit.
Yeah, like when he's purifying the Jinsei, I definitely recognize the words Watashi wa. I know that one from my Japanese animes.
Weeb.
But yeah, so the next time we see Jax, he's living on his parents' farm.
Is it his parents' farm?
I think they like that it belonged to Jackie's grandparents
Okay. And
somewhere.
like the concept art and shit.
Something like that. It might have been in the comic or
Anyway, well,
well, it is called the Briggs Farm, and I have to imagine that he inherited it because it doesn't it looks very small and old-fashioned.
it's not a huge barn, big
And
enough for a
there's an old
tractor
beat
and a
up tractor
workbench.
he's repairing. Seems like it's been there for a long time. I have
Yeah.
to imagine that it runs in the family.
I do like Farmer Jax. Like the notion of him having gone through all of that shit and being haunted by all the memories of all the things he did, which Sonya says as much, is like it's enough to have him quit and settle down with Vera. His wife's name is Vera now, we know that.
Right. There's it's sort of implied that he has struggled with thoughts of suicide and that like having a wife is kind of what keeps him from doing it. And we see that
Yeah.
with Sub-Zero in the comic when he comes back too, that like look, being a revenant fucks you up real bad.
What he says is specific. While Sonya goes to see him, and she's like, if I had to struggle with everything that I did as if I were a revenant and I had to remember all these horrible things I did for Quan Chi, I'd have probably eaten a gun. It's a surprisingly dark line. And then Jax
Yeah.
is like, yeah, well, she wouldn't allow that.
Yeah, because that's you have to think about like it's not just like the abstract of oh I've been to hell and I've seen demons and torture and stuff. It's when they were working for Shinnok, they were killing human soldiers. Like Jax was murdering members of the U.S. Army. Imagine how that would affect him.
And knowing Jax and his combat abilities, he was probably ripping them apart.
Yeah, I have to imagine it was pretty gruesome. And I mean, obviously, like any kind of like mind control situation, being forced to do things that are completely against your character and having that blood on your hands, the memory obviously is a weight on him that never goes away. Even like gets worse in MK11, I would say.
You know, I've never been entirely. I'm still kind of undecided about it because he had already gone through so much. I'm not sure if it was necessary to just give him the extra punch in the gut to have his wife die of like presumably cancer or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was just
That's kind of
they took him
where I
down a peg and then another peg, and it's
because we were talking about how he has more to work with as a character in the new timeline, how it's like a pretty much total improvement. The one part where I would disagree with that is I think they go too far with it in 11.
yeah, it's unfortunate.
I feel like I mean obviously they engineered that situation specifically because they wanted a good character to defect to Chronica's side as like a shock moment and then to explore like the realization that they're working for the wrong team and turn back around at the end for sort of a feel good moment. I don't know that it worked. It it feels kind of like Jax is an idiot. Because like Fujin points it out in Aftermath. You're working for a side that has Shao Kahn on it, man.
And this is a guy who's already been through everything he's been through in X. He has, like we were just talking about, he's murdered people, he's been mind controlled, he has been on the wrong side already. So him going back to it for the sake of what he wants his daughter to do or not to do, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
I just feel like there's sort of like they push the emotion of it pretty hard with the scene that where we're introduced to Jax, where like first of all, like he can't get a hold of Jackie and he's like worrying himself sick. And then he's like it cuts to him like having fallen asleep in front of the TV with a beer in his hand. Like he's obviously like at a real low point when Kronika comes in. And like when he first meets her, like it's just another god that he's met like Raiden. He doesn't know she's evil, and she gives a good pitch. I don't necessarily buy like I get from if you look at it real surface level, the idea that he's like, I didn't want my daughter to serve because then she'd go through the same things I went through and they fucked my life up real bad. I get that part of it. But there's also like your daughter has been in the military for years and years now. There has to be a point where you understand that she didn't do it to replace you. She did it because she's proud of you.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I don't know.
Like I kind of rationalize it as her just really taking advantage of a desperate individual at a very dark point who may or may not be an alcoholic at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. There are moments where it
It
works and
strikes me
moments
as
where
just,
it doesn't. I'm real on the fence about it, honestly.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like we've already seen him get to a really low point and come back to it and come back from it. And then we kick him while he's down again. Because the parts in X where he's convinced to come back as an advisor or a guide while they're in the Netherrealm, you see him getting his groove back.
Yeah, like
He's actually
that's the whole
he's confronting like the horrible people he's like had to work like alongside, like Sindel and like horribly corrupted Liu Kang. And he's got Liu Kang sitting there spitting bile at him. Raiden murdered me, and you can see him regaining confidence and feeling back in his place as he's dodging the fireballs. And the
exactly.
moment he walks up to Quan Chi, was like, "You don't have to be hostile," and he's like, "Just stop talking." And he punches him, and like Quan Chi, like he's the one that goes in and gets Quan Chi. He
Yeah.
crawls back up from the bottom, from like being really shaken and going through that PTSD, and he gets himself back, and that's the moment that seals it. He's not even in the rest of MKX, if I'm
I think
remembering right.
that's the thing that bothers me about it is it's a character arc thing. His arc in MKX is about getting back on the horse. And MK11 backslides him.
Ugh, the more I think about it, the more I hate it.
I don't know. This feels like a function of the fact that 9 and X were written by Brian Chard, and 11 is by Sean Kittleson. It's two different. The change in writers caused us to lose some arcs and
Yeah.
themes that Chard was building, and that's always a shame. Like it's you see it all the time in superhero comics, and it always drives me nuts. And it's sort of one of the reasons that I don't really follow comics the way I used to. I just got tired of the writer changes and the fact that it all kind of feels like fan fiction up to a point where it's like when you have these characters being passed around, handed like a baton from person to person, and there's no like one unifying vision, it just that's what fan fiction is. the other thing about MKX that there's this whole like section apparently that was supposed to happen but ended up on the cutting room floor that involves Jax, and Fujin is supposed to be there helping him, like, I don't know what they were supposed to be doing, like sort out the Revenant situation in the Netherrealm after they captured Quan Chi.
Okay, what's the source on this?
Brian Shard mentioned it.
Okay.
It was an answer to a question of like what was appeared to, because he appears at the beginning of MKX and then we don't see him again.
Much
And
to everyone's
like, well,
consternation.
he was supposed to be in the Netherrealm with Jax, and somehow this ended up on the cutting room floor, like I said. And actually, Fujin does have some intros in 11 where he mentions it.
Damn shame.
Yeah. That apparently he was down there with Jax, and that they were involved together in setting up the ambush of Quan and the Revenants where they capture Quan. And I don't know, you know, what always struck me as weird is the fact that Serena knows Jax. Like, there's some history, I guess, from the off-screen Shinnok's invasion at the beginning of the game parts. Because obviously, like, when the game starts, we see the end of the invasion, where Shinnok is defeated. So there must have been a whole MK4-like series of events leading up to that apparently Serena met all these other characters, and they all know her now.
Well, I have to assume that a bunch of people in the Brotherhood of the Shadow and a bunch of Revenants also working for Quan Chi would probably become acquainted.
I guess it's just weird to me, because if you ask me how would you use Serena game, I would never be like, yeah, she knows Jackson helps him out, but not Sub-Zero. She has no scenes with Sub-Zero.
Well, Serena, as we know in the NRS timeline, is just one big dropped ball. She was put in there as an Easter egg for us older fans, and that's probably about the extent of it.
And apparently Cabal is over there, like, not talking to her, but has a crush on her, and is like, in another timeline, I'm gonna marry that girl. What? No, seriously, what?
That's our wacky Cabal! Slide whistle.
Cabal.
I'm gonna drink so much when we do the Cabal retrospective. Just 2 hours of nonsense.
The Cabal retrospective should come with beer.
There's no hoping for logic, wishing things were better. Cabal simply is. And none of it's ever worked.
We're not going to put it on YouTube. We're going to record it on cassette tapes. And we're going to attach magnets to them. And we're going to just throw them into the sky, and they will, like, bounce into the people who want to hear them and knock them over.
Available on cassette tape and 8-track at your local Sam Goody. So I think that we were in the midst of me becoming disillusioned in real time with the direction MK11 took Jackson.
Yeah. You know, I have some issues with his design too. Like, if you look at the fingers of the new arms Kronika gives him, they have, like, they look like human fingers. But then his elbow is an exposed ratchet joint.
Just bring up this MK11 Jack surrender here.
I have some questions about what she makes this shit out of, especially because, like, Cyberfrost has red blood and normal organs and x-rays and fatalities, but on some of her costumes, parts of her body are made out of ice.
Okay, well...
and her spine comes out, but if you rip it out, it'll kill her.
But we were talking about how Jax is a walking Apple ad.
Also, like, why does a Titan have all this technology? Why is that Kronika's aesthetic?
Apple tech. Time
He
tech.
looks like a space alien. Like, that's what they were going for, is like spaceships. And
It's very bizarre.
I almost feel like, you know what Chronica reminds me of?
Hmm?
The Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Oh no. Oh god.
She reminds me of Ridley Scott's later work aesthetic, like the bad
Stop.
alien movies. That's what I think of when I look at Chronica stuff.
Stop.
Is Ridley fucking Scott.
No,
And
well,
I
you know
don't like
what? Like, I actually just watched Prometheus a little while back. I sat down and I made myself revisit it to see if it was as stupid as I remember. Long story short, yes. God, yes. But I also came away with an appreciation of, like, the scope of what he was trying to do. It was just executed poorly. So in that, I kind of see a lot of comparisons and similarities.
Yeah, but I mean
between...
that I've always compared like the Prometheus and Covenant to the Star Wars prequels, which you can say the same thing about. George had a vision that makes sense. It was just executed poorly.
Why is the 1979 movie called Aliens when we know a robot made them now? Anyway. So, yeah, I'm not crazy about Chronica version Jax. Just, there's a lot going on, and, like, I feel like you're only able to get away with this kind of aesthetic if you were part of Marilyn Manson's 1998 band lineup. It's very bizarre. Like, the gold elbow pads.
Yeah, I don't. All of his arms have elbow pads. What the fuck?
the one bit I do like is the brass knuckles he's got on a chain around his neck. That's really cool.
Like that.
But the rest of it's like this early 1990s pro wrestler gimmick. It's strange.
Yeah, like he's just all the white spandex. It is very professional, which, to be fair, Jax does a lot of pro wrestling moves.
He does, but I don't know. Like,
I'm also wondering, like, what is the conversation you have with Jax where it's like, now that you're on Team Chronica, you have to wear the uniform?
Do they have a bunch of Zords off screen, you think?
But do you think there's like a henshin sequence, like he has to transform into those clothes? He didn't like literally like pull the spandex on one leg at a time. There was like a magic flash.
Are we talking like a Sailor Moon thing here? Like he slowly levitates into the air and like pivots around in a beautiful glow of light.
Sailor Moon is Power Rangers for girls, all right? It's all the same.
He tilts his head back a little bit. The arms come on.
You know what always amused me is that whenever they do like a Green Lantern animated movie, whenever he like transforms into the suit, they make it look like Sailor Moon on purpose.
All right, I want to talk about good things about Jax. I like the vest. The vest is actually kind of an inspired choice for me. Like the vest combined with the undershirt / tank top. I do enjoy that. And the vest without the tank top on the younger version, combined with the metal arms and the dog tags.
You know what? I do
like that a lot.
Like, his starting costume is obviously designed to evoke what he wore in X, right? So he's also, like, his default starting arms also still have the American flag bandana tied around the bicep. I like that. Also, one design choice that I really like in 11 is that they gave him the MK3 missiles back. I mean, they changed the mechanics where it's like his arms heat up as he uses them, and then he fires off the heat.
Okay, I do fucking hate the heating up mechanic, though.
It's kind of weird. I'm just happy to have some form of those missiles, because as a projectile, I've always liked them better than the purple wave.
For me, it's an either-or scenario, but I really hate the fact that his arms just start glowing, and It's very visually off-putting, and I wish it was maybe just
It,
his hands.
it's it's kind of garish. Um,
I like the belt buckles as gear.
yeah, the belt buckles are cool. I do think it's I think it was an interesting choice to give him the grenade launcher when you knew that you were putting Terminator into the game and that you're basically robbing him from something that he does famously in T2 and giving it to Jax.
Yeah,
That's an
I've never been entirely
interesting
convinced.
choice.
I've never been entirely convinced by the grenade launcher.
Also, like if you're already giving him the missiles projectile, and also like people have complained ever since MK9 basically gave us viable gameplay. People have always kind of been like, why does your dedicated grappler character need a projectile? Because that's usually not a thing in fighting games.
oh
I
boy.
feel like they could have done without the grenade launcher. Yeah.
I can understand the argument that like that's a projectile weapon too many. He's already got it, and but to be fair, a lot of those people who complain about that are also the kind who just kind of want Jax to be a 360 Zangief grappler, and I've never been on board with that. I don't like the MK characters being compared to or contrasted with Street Fighter or King of Fighters archetypes because I don't believe in the homogenization of all fighting games.
Yeah, there like archetypes kind of.
MK is an exception to these rules. I've always said the MK cast feels more similar, projectiles aside, in
I
terms
find
of
the problem
execution and
with
things that they can do
archetypes.
to Tekken.
The problem with archetypes is they can be limiting. Like when season 1 of Killer Instinct, I don't know that I feel like Jago needs to be a Shoto clone. I feel like maybe that's sort of putting Jago in a box that there are other things he could do. I mean, Grant, he always was a Shoto, but you could come up with some new stuff. Like Saberwolf is supposed to be the dedicated rushdown guy, but even inside that box, he has some cool things, some things that he didn't always do,
Yeah,
like the carving eclipse moon shapes with his claws and stuff like that. There's some new stuff there. There's some interesting.
I think it'd have gone a bit. I think it looked a little bit less uninspired if he maybe didn't have the Shoryuken directly. But anyway,
I'm just saying, like, I think you can have a grappler and still give him a projectile. I don't know that he needs so many projectiles. That's where I'm at with
yeah,
the grenade launcher.
I agree with that.
And I felt the same way when he had a machine gun in previous games. He doesn't need that. Just have him shoot missiles out of his fists.
Sometimes less is better. He's got these arms. Let him do all kinds of cool, crazy
Yeah, that's
shit
the
with
whole
them.
thing. Like he has cybernetic arms. If you're going to give him weapons, put them inside the arms.
If I
That's
mean,
what I want to see,
we talked about last time how it was weird for him to actually have tonfas when his arms are literally made of metal.
right?
Like, if you've got to do that, maybe like have them extract out of the side or something.
Why is he swinging a stone club like a caveman in MK4? His arms are steel.
All right, I think it's we've talked a little bit about the design aesthetics, but we haven't gotten to one of the major things that have is kind of central to Jax's character in the recent two games, and that's his relationship with Jackie.
Yeah. Because that is, under normal circumstances, that would dominate the conversation because people have very strong opinions about Jackie and about how she affects Jax, how having them in the same game affects them both. I'm of the mind that you could have Jax and Jackie on the same roster, like X and 11 both do, and it wouldn't be a problem if Jackie just simply had a different moveset, man. I don't think the kickboxer direction they took her with gun gauntlets basically aping her dad's arms was inspired in any way. Like it just feels like it's one step removed from Jarek having the cannonball. You know, it's from Kira being just Sonya's moves and Jax's moves combined. It doesn't work for me.
I see along similar lines. Jackie had and like still continues to have kind of an identity crisis problem, where it's like, how do we show that this is the descendant of this character? How do we make these similarities but not too overt? And sometimes they, like in MKX, they just didn't take her far enough. And in MK11, it's like a little bit of everything. I prefer the kickboxer aesthetic to her having straight up gauntlets.
I feel like there's a kitchen sink approach to her moves in 11 where they tried to make her more unique, and at the
but they
same
didn't
time,
go far enough.
They gave her the bionic dash.
They didn't go far enough in making her individual.
And now she has more like purple special effects when she swings her arms around, just like her dad. Like, it feels like they leaned away from her having his moves, and then went back and gave him some of his moves.
If they just leaned into the full kickboxer thing, I think I would have been like way more impressed with her moves. Well, with her as a character to play as. Story-wise, it's something else entirely.
What bothers me, both for her story and her moves, is that, you know, a lot of people will look at Jackie and the redundancies, and they'll simply say, I don't see anything of value in this character, just cut her. That bothers me because I see potential, and it drives me crazy when I see that, and then I see it wasted. And it like, the fact that so many people want to get rid of her shows how badly they're fucking her up.
It's a combination of many things, I think.
I just feel like
she's also fucking completely ass broken. She shouldn't have that dash.
Oh yeah, the character. Look, she's
nerf
broken
Jackie,
on purpose because they want people to play as her.
Nerf Jackie is real.
She is designed the way MOBAs design the new character they release every month. They start out broken so that people will be enticed to buy them and play as them, and then they nerf them later. Except NRS is never going to nerf Jackie because they just want people to always be playing Jackie. This is their answer to the fact that she's unpopular, is to try to make her popular through gameplay, to try to force people to play her by recognizing that she is the toppest tier.
Oy.
And nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be forced to pick a character that they wouldn't normally main.
Short dashes, close grabs, followed by the kickboxing shite. Give me more of that. I like that. I don't need her firing upwards rockets and forward plasma blasts and forward dash.
What I think is a weird choice is that that force field grenade they gave her that she barely uses in anything but her like.
What? Yeah, like why isn't that more of a thing? That'd be amazing.
Yeah, like she only uses it for her super and her finishers. She doesn't really.
If she could like toss that shit out and control the battle arena like Aganos and Killer Instinct, that'd be amazing.
It almost feels like an afterthought, the way Kung Jin having a chakram did in X.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just feel like that she's too centered on her dad is the problem in both story and gameplay. Like, if someone asked me to describe Jackie's personality, I would say she loves her dad. Is her personality.
That's unfortunately, she loves her dad, and she is also Cassie's best friend.
Yeah,
just like Jack.
She has this. She has like the connection to Cassie, but that's also like her dad's connection to Sonya. And then she has this romance with Takeda that doesn't feel like the chemistry doesn't actually exist. It's
in MK
that relationship's not working.
In MKX, she was defined by everyone around her, and that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
It was like she was Takeda's girlfriend and Jax's daughter. Who was she?
And I feel like there's an easy fix here. And I have mentioned it before on the show. I feel like Jackie is a character who it can simultaneously feel just as derivative of her dad, But I feel like it would be different if her backstory involved an accident where she lost her legs and she had cybernetic legs instead of these gauntlets on her arm. And then you gave her a much more kicking-based fighting style and maybe super speed moves like...
I was just saying, shorter
I don't
dashes.
see a whole lot of likelihood that her and Cabal are going to be in the same game that often. I mean, they are in 11, but I don't know how... Because especially the way people look at Cabal now, I don't think 11 did him any favors. I don't know what his future looks like as in terms of like being on rosters.
We'll get there.
So I feel like Jackie could have some like super speed dash moves, and not like Cabal's where it makes you spin in a circle. I just think that if you made her a pure rushdown character,
yes, exactly,
where like she gets up like the Flash in Injustice, where she gets up in there, does some like some combos that are a lot of small hits, like instead of like the usual combo where it's 3 and 4 hits to get like 30 damage, maybe she does like 7 or 8 hits to get 30 damage, but it's all kind of auto stuff where it's like the special move is like a 5-kick combo, like a bicycle kick sort of thing. If you did more of that with her, I think she would feel more unique. But the fact that she has guns on her arms,
that's what needs to change. It's just like I was saying, they went a bit farther with her, but just not quite far enough.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that its arms reminds you of Jax, and the fact that its guns reminds you of there's way too much military stuff in X and 11. I need those to go away. And that's why I always suggest, like, because again, as a backstory thing, the reason I'm thinking of like an accident and robot legs is because the most interesting thing about her backstory to me that already exists is going back to like the MKX comic, where before she joined the military, when she was in like high school or whatever it was, and she was training for the Junior Olympics. The idea of Jackie as an athlete instead of as a military person is interesting to me, because it's like, it's almost like if she is going down the road her father never took, because Jax was always the gym rat, that he was an athlete, but he was military first, and the working out was a hobby. If she was athleticism first, that would be different from her dad, but still evoke that I want to follow in my father's footsteps feel, you know?
And it would have had a Jax who wasn't miserable, that his daughter lived a life he never wanted her to live.
Yeah, if it was more like, I could even see Jax living vicariously through Jackie's achievements as an athlete, you know, like like fathers often do with their children. Yeah. And then you get like the pathos of like maybe another realm attacks the city while she's at like a track meet, or she's at like a big thing where she would have won a medal or something, and like the fucking arena blows up, and that's how her legs are injured. And then you've got like, well, now my dreams, my career are over, and those fucking Netherrealmers did it, and I'm gonna get my revenge. Something like that, you know?
I think we gotta bring it back to Jax a little bit here.
Right.
Just a bit. I do agree with where you're coming from, though.
Yeah, I just feel like Jackie has these seeds of a good idea that they went in completely the wrong direction by having her so much like her dad that she joins the military and has shit on her arms. And I think the fact that she's so similar to him hurts him.
It does.
Because, you know, we talked about last episode about how often people are like, Jax has been in too many games and I wish he'd sit one out and I'm bored of him. I wonder how much of that is the fact that technically X and 11 have 2 Jaxes in them.
Well said. And you know, I'm not exactly the biggest fan. Like, I can appreciate the story angle of him not wanting his daughter to live the same kind of life that he did, which could turn out as horrible as it has in certain points. But the whole fact that he's willing to, like, actually, you know, go back and help Chronica to try to alter timelines, to take away her choices so that she doesn't live that life. That's kind of one of those is this character really even being written well moments? Because even during his darkest, like alcohol prone moments, I'm keeping in mind the allowance that, Chronica's taking advantage of someone who's psychologically kind of broken down. It's a bit of a tough pill for me to swallow that he take away his own daughter's choices like that. I'm not sure how much I enjoyed that angle. I appreciate the fact that younger Jax helps to bring Jax back to himself.
Right. I feel like younger Jax gets it, where he's proud of his daughter. I feel like what's missing from older Jax is that, like, it kind of bothers me that he seems to blame being in the military for the bad stuff that's happening to him, as opposed to blaming the realms that have attacked Earth and the
Yeah.
magic shit, Like,
I don't entirely hate the fact
one
that
of
he's kind of broken down and like he wants something different, but it's just that they could have handled it a little bit better, I
I
found.
think what bothers me about it is that one of the classic core traits inherent to Jax was patriotism, that he
Mm-hmm.
was clearly proud to serve. Like, the guy is always standing behind or standing in front of an American flag in his fucking bio screens, and like
All
he
that you
literally
can be,
wears
baby.
the flag as a cape in his MK9 win pose. I kind of I kind of feel
Cheesy but
uncomfortable
wonderful.
with that guy then becoming like, no, fuck the military. You shouldn't have, like, I don't want you doing that.
Like you were saying, it's just a bit too far. After building him up so well in 10, to take him down a couple pegs, to have him start making decisions that you question
I feel like
whether
you could
this is really that character or not. I just don't know.
I feel like you could get down the same road, but have Jax proud of Jackie. Like, if it was more like that, Chronica told him about like some bad future that was going to happen that he was trying to prevent.
Yeah, like have her lie to him or something.
Yeah, as opposed to like she wasn't supposed to serve, and that's the good news version of the universe for him. That I don't know. I just I just find myself liking the idea of Jax as the proud dad, like
Me too.
the bleachers, who's like, again, the living vicariously through your kids' sports achievements. The That kind of dad is sort of what I would think would be more fun to have Jax as.
Agreed. He'd be like go team. He'd be there with like the fucking giant #1 foam finger and the popcorn and shit.
Yeah.
That's the kind of Jax I envision. Not this broken down husk of a shell of a person who's already conquered his personal
Yeah.
demons.
And speaking of reasons Jax is sad in 11.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back to X for a moment because there's a bit of dialogue in X when the combat kids first arrive in Outworld and Kung Jin is kind of being a jerk talking about Jackie's dad and the Revenant thing. And she mentions being aware of the difference in his behavior before he died versus when he came back from death, which suggests that she was alive before MK9. But then MK11 goes, Jax didn't meet Vera until he was like in therapy and recovery when he came back from the dead, and Jackie was born after he came back from the dead.
Continuity error.
Yeah.
Bad one.
So I don't know, it's like on one hand it does give us like an actual backstory for Vera, which we didn't have before, that she was apparently like a, I don't know, like a nurse or a therapist, some kind of someone who helped
It,
him.
it was one of those things, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I keep going back to I would prefer it if Vera had been Gemini. That's all I got. I
was
just
literally
think that
about to
would
say that.
make way more
Like, yeah.
sense, and I think Jackie works better if she's a little older than Cassie, and she had been born before 9. Because,
Gemini, hard
I mean, there's this whole weird thing 11 goes with where now that it's set up that he only met Vera because he came back from the dead, so if we change the timeline, Jackie might never be born. And like I get that if you're doing a time travel story, you want to pull the Back to the Future string a little bit. You want to like audiences expect that. I don't know that it feels like it goes anywhere. Like, do you really believe that in the next timeline, the one Liu Kang makes, that Jackie won't exist? I think we all know that Cassie, Jackie, Takeda, and Kung Jin will appear in a future game one day.
That's something for an. I think that's something for an entirely different conversation. Like, I believe fully that by the time we're ready to have that talk, it'll be like MK15 or something. I think we're about good on to do for a full-on reboot. So, we'll see. Unless they do like a pure no story, like
I don't necessarily want to see any Combat Kids in MK12. I would like something set in the Great Kung Lao era, or I know a lot of people will complain, but hell, anytime you redo MK1, I'm down.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I am. I've always wanted a Great Kung Lao game.
You know, and I've talked before about like you could do like the past of like Kitana, Melina, and Jade as assassins working for Khan in Outworld, and show how she like found out the truth and was like still working for him but keeping a secret that she knew, and how she was plotting against him and trying to like be a mole basically and not let it slip.
You could have like the original Takeda from
yeah, like the
classic defector who left the Lin Kuei. It's actually funny. A lot of like Origins or Year Zero stories are pretty fucking badly contrived, but MK's had a lot of natural ingredients for one for a very long time. And they mostly line up.
And I think I've pointed out before that like the 1490s is one of the years Great Kung Lao would have fought in an MK tournament. That lines up pretty nicely with the feudal era of Japan when ninjutsu was invented. So, like, Takeda could be a contemporary of Great Kung Lao. They could be in the same game.
Fucking A. Alright, but back to Jax for a sec.
Right.
So now, I mean, do we have anything much else to say about younger Jax in 11? Because we've covered the elder at length.
No, I think they did right by young Jax.
Yeah, like he's got that kind of like cocky optimism. He feels like a little bit more Carl Weathers than usual, in a fun way.
Yeah, I appreciate that he's sort of the I think he might be the most optimistic character in 11. Because you know, when you come to the future and you're faced with the news that you get it worst out of anybody, and he's still like, yeah, but it'll be fine. I mean, I can avoid that stuff now, right?
And this is still supposed to be like, you know, this is still Metal Arms Jax. This is not young Jax. Despite the fact that he looks like he's 25. He looks really disarmingly younger Jax.
He does look pretty young. I mean, I always imagine that MK2 and 3, he was already in his like maybe late 30s, maybe even getting close to 40.
That is really good for 40.
The leader of the unit.
That is really good for 40. That's like, I'm like smoking Chinese herbs and using mystical formulas good looking.
Yeah, he's real young looking in 11.
It's not terrible, but
yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's just kind of odd to look at.
Yeah, it's just something to point out. It's just kind of weird.
He just maybe ideally could have been aged up a little bit. That's all. Like I said, I love the vest.
No, if you look close, there is a little bit of gray even in young Jax's hair.
Squinting, staring.
It's just something.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it's just something that I noticed, like looking real like attention to detail at the cutscenes. I always like sort of picked out, as young as he looks, he does already look like he's going gray.
You know what it is? It's the utter lack of facial hair. That's what's doing it.
Yeah,
That's what's doing it.
I will
Takes
say, like
takes 10 years
makes
off of
you
him.
look older. Mustaches do have that effect.
They do. So now that we're here, I guess we talk about his arcade endings maybe from 9 through 11.
Yeah.
Because we haven't gone through those yet.
So his arcade ending in 9, I'm pretty sure, kind of repeats what happened in Versus DC. He just kind of becomes cyborg again.
Let me see this shit here.
It was so the premise of it is that he like hooks his cybernetics attached to his brain, so he's able to plug himself into like all of the surveillance tech in the world. And Kano, like there's like a connection thing where Kano has become a Skynet like virus taking over drones and tanks and things, and Jax becomes the like security software that stops him.
After the invasion was thwarted, many of Jax's allies had seemingly disappeared. I wonder how. Leaving him to clean up the mess on his own. He searched for Shao Kahn's remaining forces using a new cyber scanner designed to remotely access worldwide databases. Navigating its virtual reality interface, Jax inadvertently accessed Kano's brain through his optical laser implant. It apparently has Wi-Fi. Their minds linked, Jax virtually battled Kano. Finally, he captured and quarantined Kano's consciousness within the Special Forces mainframe. A dangerous criminal to finally be neutralized. This is some back of a napkin at a diner shit right here.
Yeah, it is. That's kind of where I was trying to get to, is that like that particular ending feels like they ran out of goddamned ideas.
There is nothing to that. This person has cybernetics, so does this person. And they did a thing and they fought. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Apparently they both jacked into the Matrix and had a brain fight. And now Kano's in a coma because his brain is trapped in the computer.
Sure, why not? Hurts, don't it? MKX ending.
Right, so in the MKX ending, it actually ties into several other endings where the little B plot in these connected endings is that Kotal Khan is mad that he got beat up at the end of MKX. So he sends Aaron Black to assassinate the Combat Kids. And in Jax's ending, he happens to be with them when Aaron attacks, and he takes the bullet for them. So Aaron is stopped, but he dies again. He dies in an ending in the game where he just came back from the dad.
All right, again, shitty. Moving on.
And there's another weird part about that is that in Sonya's ending in X,
yeah, it ties in. She gets
it's
the
about
news
her having like a dream where she psychically sees that this happens. Like she happens to be asleep while Jax is getting shot, and she dreams about him getting shot. And it's like this weird ongoing thing, because like in MK9, she had an ending about how she was seeing her dad's ghost and going crazy, unless it was really his ghost. It's vague and like could go either way. And then there's this. So it's like, was Brian Chard trying to give Sonya psychic powers?
I feel like this maybe might tie into the Dream Lady from 9. He might have been maybe trying to slowly set up and build up some sort of dream realm.
Right, but
just like a thought off the top of my head.
It's Sonya's connection to it that confuses me, because it felt like he was going, Soldier Lady with laser rings isn't enough. Sonya needs superpowers.
No, it was like,
and was slowly building up to it.
There's a lot of mentions of dreams and shit. I don't think this is coincidence. But anyway, Jax lived.
It could be that too. I just think it's weird that it's Sonya.
Who
Because,
knows?
like, I would almost say one of the defining traits of Sonya is that she's more normal person than all of the, like, Magic main characters.
Oh god, now I'm looking at the Mortal Kombat X Mobile Sonya soccer outfit. Take it away. Forgot this existed.
Let's not do that. So MK11, Jax's ending is a little bit
Okay. Alright,
weirdly
yes.
controversial.
Let's get down to it. Because
So,
holy shit, people.
I mean, before we get into, like, the weird controversy thing, I do want to kind of give this ending a shout out for having a particular visual. When Jax
Yes.
is, like, looking into the hourglass, it shows art of his MK2 bio picture. You know, it's John Parrish and his glorious mustache right there on the screen.
I gotta look at this. I gotta watch this again right now because I don't think I noticed the parish thing.
I mean, they did like a painted version of it, but it's clearly the same picture. Which also brings me to a point that, like, in some of the MK11 endings, there's this weird art inconsistency where sometimes they're wearing MK9 costumes, and sometimes they're wearing like line costumes. And I guess that's part of the, like, MK11 is honoring every timeline and, like, having references and, like, saying it's all part of this
Ah,
chain of
yes.
universes Chronica has done.
Okay, yes. I'm looking at the parish thing. I can't believe I forgot about that. It's a fucking great painting, too.
Yeah, yeah. So I just appreciated that was there.
You know, when it comes to costumes, though, these days, I just kind of, like, look at whatever character they show me and what they're wearing, and I just kind of squint and I imagine whatever costume it is that I prefer.
Yeah, it's...
I feel like the message all along has just been, these characters look the way you want them to look, but this is what we're trying this time through.
It's always kind of been difficult to reconcile any game as being in a shared continuity with its prequels and sequels. Like it's hard to believe that Armageddon and MK9 are the same universe, even though they're trying to claim they are, because everybody's wearing different outfits in the flashback. It's hard to believe that MK9 and MKX are canon to each other, because everybody's wearing different clothes in the flashbacks. And it's just, like, it's always been... The most hilarious thing to me is the flashback in X, Raiden doesn't have his medallion. And the medallion was the whole plot of 9.
Infinite timelines, Razor. Infinite timelines. Maybe he was just having psychic dream visions in that timeline. Whee!
Anyway. What bothers me about it is, specifically in 11, almost every single character who has a retro skin, I only play as their retro skins. I don't actually like any of the new outfits. I wish there was a mechanic. Like, I wish story mode was the cutscenes were in real time using the in-game engine instead of pre-rendered, so that you could pick your costume like they do in Street Fighter V or the new Avengers game. Because if you could pick your costume, imagine how cool it would be to have that scene in Khan's Arena where all the past characters come out of the sand. Imagine if they were wearing their MK2 and 3 costumes. It would give that scene a completely different vibe.
Yeah.
And it would be a much better vibe.
Ah, well. Let's talk about that ending.
Especially for Kung Lao. But I digress.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
So I'm not sure if the actual content of the ending is what set people off. They talk like it is, but I think what really bothers them is that it contains the word woke.
Yeah, okay, there's that. I've read the allegations that it promotes white genocide, which is fucking hilarious. Oh my god. If you actually look at Jax's ending and you think white genocide...
You know what I think people are getting a reading of when they see that ending? I think people think... Because the content of the ending is Jax looks at all of human history and he decides to eliminate racism and slavery and make everybody equal. And the scene it creates in his perfect future is him, Vera, and Jackie hanging out in what basically looks like Wakanda.
Pretty much.
I think there are people who are looking at that scene and imagining it takes place in America. Like, I think they think he turned the US into Wakanda, as opposed to it being set in Africa, which I think is what the creators intended.
I think it's irrelevant. I think it can be anywhere you want it to be. In the background, you've got like something that looks like it could be some sort of copy of the Washington Monument. There is kind of a, I don't know, I want to say maybe a Middle Eastern vibe about the city's construction. Like it could be Saudi Arabia or something. But I don't think it actually ultimately matters. It's
Well,
just
I think if
it's just a really nice message. That's all there
I
is
think
to it.
if a predominantly white audience sees an image that looks like America has been turned into an all-black people country, that's where you're getting the accusations of white genocide. And I don't agree with it. I think the scene is set in Africa because if you altered time to eliminate slavery, then Jax would have grown up where his ancestors grew up, right?
Maybe.
He would have been from Africa instead of from America if there had never been people forcing like black people to get on ships and come to the U.S.
So in this timeline, he also met Vera.
That does kind of point out the like, look, if you're manipulating the timeline the way you want it to be, of course he could meet Vera if he wanted to, right? So the fact that when in Jackie's ending, the fact that she can't find a future where Jax doesn't die but she's still born, she clearly wasn't trying hard enough.
Oh god, Jackie's ending. Jesus. What a gigantic pity party that was.
I mean,
Anyway,
I kind of get like the heroic moment of is like, okay, well, if my dad gets to be happy and the end result is I'm not born, I'm willing to make that sacrifice for his happiness. Like that is, like a sweet and loving thing to do.
It's nice.
Think, look, he was able to make a timeline where he completely changed the history of the whole world and still met his wife.
Well, look at
maybe you could have workshopped this a little harder, girl.
I have a lot of issues with Jackie's ending. I felt like it was really designed to artificially tug at the heartstrings and get us to care about the character more than maybe they thought that we did at the time. Kind of a cheap shot.
I could kind of see that. I don't know. It doesn't hit me that way, but I get it.
Bye, Dad. Yes, I'm very sad now. Thank you. But I mean, like, okay, just sit back and enjoy the non-racist rules.
I don't have a problem with the.
I'm not saying you do. I don't understand why anyone would.
There is one minor nitpick about it.
Okay.
Again, I have always seen like part of Jax's character is American patriotism. That he does actually love this country and that it has given him a good life. And they do mention that in the ending. He's like, I've been blessed, but other people haven't, and that's why I'm eliminating slavery.
And that's a great sacrifice.
But I feel like the future he created should still look like the US. Because if he really is a patriot, if he really loves this country, that would be like, if that's part of his character, then the world he creates where his family lives should be recognizable as the country he loves, shouldn't it?
There's palm trees. Maybe he's in Venice visiting Johnny.
I don't know. It looks like Wakanda to me. And Wakanda's in Africa, so that's a surface level read of it. That's a shallow read of it, I guess. I'm not analyzing the scenery to try and figure out what country or city this place actually is. It resembles Wakanda, so I'm imagining Wakanda.
Anyway, all I gotta say is too many panties up in a twist about it. It's nice.
Yeah, I do think it was ridiculously overblown. Like it feels like just such an artificial drama.
Just let go of all the
Like
insecurity.
I really like, and it's been ever since like 2016 that people on the internet have been so overly like politically divided about things and so like easily set off about every little thing.
Yeah, the word woke carries a lot of baggage.
I'm so tired of living in this version of society.
It helps if you don't go online as much. I've kind of given up on it a lot. I come back for you, our listeners. I'm staring at a computer screen. I'm touching a filthy keyboard. I am looking at things that probably come from Reddit or worse, Tumblr, for your sake. Every day I die a little on the inside as memes flow through my blood. And I do it all for you. Favorite fatalities?
It's hard for me to avoid because one of my favorite franchises is Star Trek, which has always been about politics and
Utopia.
Yeah, that's sort of what bothers me is that like modern versions of Star Trek, Discovery and Picard, stuff like that, they're so colored by modern politics, which is so divisive and dramatic. And I miss the 80s and 90s when the message of shows like that was about how we can all just get along.
Fresh Prince, anyone? Fresh Prince.
Different times now. I miss hope and optimism is what I'm saying, I think.
So do I.
I miss the Burger King Kids Club or the Captain Planet or the Power Rangers version of diversity where it was about
that kind of hopeful 90s. We're getting to the year 2000 and we should really clean up our shit before Jesus comes home, kind of,
it was always about like how the differences didn't exist, how we're basically all the same. And now I feel like there's so much divisiveness and like segregation seems to be coming back.
I could get into it, but I won't. But I have this whole thesis about how the passing of the new millennium just transitioned the world into something really awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, this isn't the place for it.
We're in a dark place right now, and I guess I think it's really unfortunate that Jax has gotten caught up in that. Because it almost makes it seem like he is the token. If he's the guy that you speak about like these things with, and I don't know if that message has a place in a Mortal Kombat game, man.
You know what? I was actually about to bring that up. Jax has always, been a character who, for lack of a better phrase, just happens to be the black guy who's gone from the token black guy, like we were talking about earlier, to like a full, fleshed out, wonderful member of the crew. Someone that like we can't live without. Someone who we always want to have around. But we've never explored the fact that he is a black guy at all, at any kind of value whatsoever. And, like, never really examined it. And so I actually do find myself I was thrown off by this too when it first came out. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I can't really think of a better time for it than now.
I don't know. I guess it's because like Jax was obviously created in the 90s when we had almost succeeded as a culture in becoming post-racial. Where like
did we really, or did we all just think, or would just like to believe that we were there? But that's for another time.
I mean, I would rather that even if it wasn't true, I would rather live that lie because it was. If you believe something long enough, it becomes true. If you teach a generation of kids that race doesn't matter, they'll stop seeing it. We were almost succeeding at that, and then we've backtracked a lot in the past 2 decades.
What's your favorite way for Jax to kill a man, Razor?
Okay, my favorite fatality is probably... I like the MK4 version of the arm rep, where he puts his foot up on their chest to get leverage,
Yes.
and the arms don't come off at the same time. Like there's a struggle, and then it's pop, pop. That's my favorite.
I do like how he throws them down, slams them down.
Yeah, the slamming them on the ground. And also, like, the opponent falls down. In MK2, you rip the arms and up. It's like they're not even dead.
They just look at the camera like, what the fuck, man?
They just stare at the player and bleed forever.
That always was a little bit bizarre.
That always bugged me, because it's like, when Liu Kang's fatality isn't fatal, it's on purpose. When Jax's fatality isn't fatal, I feel like you should have animated the guy falling down.
Maybe they meant to add it in another patch and didn't get around to it.
I always saw people wonder, like when MK3 came out and he got the robot arms, the question was always, did somebody do his own fatality to him?
Oh, man. When I was really, really, really young, I remember thinking that, like, did he run into, like, Czar in the Outworld? The equivalent of Anos?
Is that what the... Jax backwards would be, like, Zaj?
Zaj, that's it, sorry. I don't know where I got the R from. Zaj.
I mean, if there's an Anos, there must be a Zaj, right?
Let me write this shit out backwards so I can visualize it in my head.
Yeah, like, I guess there's a lot of ways you could go with that. I'm not sure who would do Jax's own fatality to him other than Shang Tsung.
Skirib Noskaj.
Nice.
That's what took off Jax's arms. Skirib Noskaj.
You know, I almost wish that it really was canon that Outworld is an alternate reality Earth and that the characters had evil doubles. I almost think that would be cool.
I think that we were talking about this once, and we decided that, like, one of those G.I. Joe toys of Johnny Cage was officially, like, the doppelganger. Because he had, like, a bunch of weird, shiny shit on him that didn't look a thing like Cage.
Like, I would just love to see what their lives were like in Outworld. Because, like, isn't Anos, like, the princess of an Amazon tribe or something?
It's a village. She just has her own little village.
Okay, yeah, she's like the queen of a little village.
Got the spandex tights and everything.
Like, I wonder, would Zaj be a major in Shao Kahn's military somewhere?
Oh my god! All right, so I guess that about covers it. We just hit 2 hours.
Okay.
So I think that's a good cutting off point. I guess we're definitely going to go for a part 3 for the rest of his stuff. All of his other appearances.
All right, yeah, Jax is in a lot of media. I think it does warrant a part
merits
3.
a third. All right, so this will be it for the night. We have discussed long and well about our favorite major. So thank you all for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you very soon for part 3. It is our aim to now get these out in something of a timely fashion. Hopefully no one dies or gets a roach infestation again. I don't know if you listened to what I put up last time, but I literally sampled you going, gosh, I wish we could get these out more on time.
I remember you put that in.
From the episode prior. Yeah, I don't want that to be our catchphrase.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the delay, but the 3-month period between when we recorded and when it actually came out was painful for me, even as a guy who knows what's going on behind the scenes. So I can imagine that it was not fun for our listeners.
Fucking bed bugs, man. All right, we're back. Get some, sucker.
Later, nerd.